of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Lori Bourgeau. Here. Kelsey Cook.
Here.
Maureen Helmut.
Yes.
Allison Kemp. Ashley Ross.
Here.
I do think it needs to be noted that, do you remember the 21st night of September? Oh, I wonder where you're going through that out there.
We're going to put that in the meeting minutes.
We've been singing all day. That's the only line of the song that I know.
Was she over there at the event?
I will get the spotlight on. We'll really do right.
Feel like
We had a
I'm
whole
back,
dance thing going
feel like I'm
today.
back at the Foreigner concert.
All right. Item number 4. Is there a motion to approve the agenda tonight?
First time. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Okay, motion made by Helmut, supported by Bourgeau. Any discussion on the motion?
Was that a hammer?
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nay?
Sorry, do we have, the most up-to-date copy?
Do you have G? Do you have 8G on yours?
No,
Okay.
that's fine. I just wanna make sure I don't miss it. There, does G is the parade?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here we go.
Thank you.
There we go. Does anyone else need an updated one?
Awesome. Yeah,
I know I have an extra copy. There's a G.
sorry.
They've got him on fine.
All
Here we
right.
go.
Anybody else? I will look at hers. There we go. Good. Cool. Thanks. Okay. Next on the agenda is item 5, call to the public. So this is time for the public to speak to council. You can voluntarily state your name and address. Council cannot engage in discussion with you, but we're happy to hear from you. If anyone would like to address council under public comment, feel free to step up to the podium. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Yvonne Lewis, and I'm with Consumers Energy, and I'm a Fenton resident of Genesee County. But I'm here tonight because of the program where we brought the grant for your revitalization of your, I'm going to call them your points, for lack of correct terminology. What I wanted to do, though, was spend a few minutes just to bring to you that Consumers Energy's programs don't end there. And I, as the income qualified and in-home assessment program manager for Consumers Energy, want to bring the other programs and enlighten anyone who will listen to me about the different programs that we have. So we have in-home assessments that are at no charge for all gas Consumers Energy residents. We have small business programs. We have an income qualified program that would allow for people at or below 200% of the poverty level. And here we're in Oakland County. And so we also do 80% of AMI. And that allows for furnace replacement, water heater replacement, insulation, air sealing, pipe wrap. We have direct install measures too, and they're just popping out of my brain right now. So aerators, shower heads, door sealing, window film kits, and that's all no charge. And so as community leaders, I'm asking that if you're in your groups and you say, oh, you need what? Call Consumers Energy. It's called Helping Neighbors. That's the free program for income qualified. And then our market rate program is just HEA, Home Energy Assessments. Small business is just that, small business. And we can help with reducing the water use, the hot water used in restaurants, boiler repairs, furnace repairs through our small business groups. So I just wanted to come in on the hype that was already here today. I'm being very selfish, and just want to say that we are here with more programs than just the grant. And the grant is huge, right? Much bigger and touches so many more of the community. But as you're talking to your residents in need, or even your own individual homes, know that we have programs.
I missed what you said. What was the average median income percentage?
80% AMI
80, okay.
or 200% federal poverty level.
Got it.
And so just to give you an example, a family of 4 could make up to $62,000 a year. with combined income and still qualify for our program as income qualified and could qualify for a free furnace, water heater, insulation, air sealing. We partner a lot with your local community action agency, with out here is OLSA, and we also partner with Habitat for Humanity. And so if you're ever just entwining yourselves, because that's what people like you do, remember who we are.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate
Yeah, you're very
everything you're
welcome.
doing for Oxford, and I really appreciate you bringing this information to our attention too, and we'd love to share it.
I grabbed a few brochures that have the Helping Neighbors program on it that would at least get you in, like you could call if anyone would like one. I can just pass them out as I walk out.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you for your time and letting us, have our 3 minutes of glory here.
Anytime.
What is it again?
Any song.
No, you don't want me to sing. I was going to do the same one you did.
Thank you.
All right, let me grab that, and then we will leave and get out of your hair.
No problem. You're always welcome. Not a bother to us, that's for sure.
We were chatting over at the Consumers Grant Award, and her and I about tweaking our link to Consumers Energy on the web, on our site to theirs, about giving it maybe a separate one for this type of program versus just plain Jane.
If we have a
Consumers Energy.
microsite that would take customers
Yes.
right to our scheduling, so they could go right in and schedule an in-home assessment and not have to go through click, 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 click. And so we'll make sure you get connected with that.
I replaced my boiler.
I'm gonna
last
leave,
minute.
I'm gonna leave these with you. Did you get your rebate?
I did not.
Okay, this passed of 2022? Yep. You should still look and see if you can. I'm gonna leave these just in case you wanna share with any other groups.
Yeah, we'll put them at our countertop as well.
Okay.
People come in, pay the water and sewer bills all the time.
I'll leave them set right here.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Good
Thank
information.
you.
Thank you.
No.
Okay. Yep. We'll be talking lots more. Have a great evening.
Thanks, you too. Appreciate it. Anyone else for public comment? Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Item 6A. So is there a motion to receive and file?
I'll make a motion to receive and file. To receive and file. Consent agenda item 6A. I'm not even sure what I said. Conceive and file. We don't conceive anymore. She probably needs support.
Yep.
I'll support.
I know what to do.
Motion made by Helmuth. I saw support by Ross first. Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nay? Motion carries. Okay, item 6B, is there a motion to approve the items under 6B?
If there's no questions, I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda items B, including the bills in the amount of $595,913.42.
Support.
Okay, motion made by Helmuth, supported by Bourgeois. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, a roll call vote, please.
Bordeaux?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Helmut?
Yes.
Kemp?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Okay, number 7, unfinished old business, A. So this is the electronic vehicle charging statement, equipment program options. And we have state contracting here to kind of talk to us a little bit and answer some of our questions. So if you don't mind stepping up to the podium, that'd be wonderful.
This is Greg. He was one of the 3 that walked with Don and I back in this midsummer, whatever. Those locations that we shared with you earlier. He brought in a sample pump, as they call it, and there was some questions you guys had, and you guys thought maybe it'd be good to have somebody here. So why don't you give them an overview of some, you guys have done some another.
I was waiting for questions.
They recently installed some over in Holly, recently.
Somewhat recent, I mean, probably, and gosh, 8-9 months ago, but by now, probably,
Okay,
if I had to guess.
all
It's
right.
been a while, they've been up there for a minute. We're going through our second round, we're installing more over there currently. We just got approval to do that, so Now we're looking to kind of expand and help other communities with some more amenities. Kind of the main goal is basically finding communities where you actually have like a lively downtown area, such as Oxford, Holly, Fenton, those kind of areas where people, you know, kind of congregate and there's good dwell times, and just to bring amenities to the community, help out local businesses, all that kind of stuff.
And just to back up, to refresh, I guess, there was two different contractors that approached us, State Contracting being one of them. And State Contracting was the one with just a turnkey. We didn't have to do anything. We didn't have to put out any money. They were going to front the cost, upfront cost, and then recoup their money over the long term with the contract that we had kind of laid out in front of us. I think it was a 5 or 10 years, 10 year I think it was, with a 5-year rollover.
Probably
That's what we had
something
looked,
like that.
it was last month that we looked at that, so that was their program. The other gentleman from DG Energy, that we would have to put out like $8,000 or $12,000, and then that was covering like half the cost, where then we would be involved somehow recouping and providing the power and paying the power, recouping our power through charges. It was a little more convoluted. I mean, the simple option was the one that State Contracting does, but there was some questions
Yeah,
for the end user, I guess, and
my memory's being refreshed, yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Well, one was a shared revenue program.
Right,
Yeah, so we usually help you guys share in the revenue a little bit too. I think there's like a 3 cents a kilowatt hour
yeah.
that would.
And someone asked the questions that was asked. me.
We don't know what that meant.
Yeah, what
We
does that
don't-
mean? Is
Remember,
So,
remember,
the
Kelsey,
way-
we didn't know what that translated.
There's several different ways electric vehicle chargers work. Kind of think of it as like a parking meter. Basically, they get charged by the kilowatt hour. So the kilowatt hour is how you measure electricity going into a vehicle. So all electric vehicles have a certain kilowatt hour battery. You kind of measure that by how much electricity is getting put into the car, and then based off of how much electricity is going in is how much money you charge them. So let's say you put 10 kilowatt hours in, you would get 3 cents of each kilowatt hour that goes in. We usually cut that as a check, I believe, at the end of every
What would
month.
that cost the user who pulls up?
The user that pulls up, so it kind of depends a little bit on what you guys are paying for power. I'll tell you what I do know is electricity is a lot cheaper than gas right now. We have several electric vehicles at our office that we use for our employees and all that kind of stuff, and we charge them every single day at our office. I'll tell you, one of our newest cars, our Chevy Bolt, I think our owners probably put 3,000 or 4,000 miles on it so far, and I think in total, I calculated it the other day, we paid like $80, I think, to charge the thing.
And how far is that gonna go?
The Chevy Bolt?
Yeah.
I think at a 259 mile, 260 mile range.
So $80, you're only going 250 miles?
No, 3 or 4,000 miles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no. She's trying to trip me up here. No, so if you charge at your house, mostly, I think you guys are in, is this consumer? No, this is DTE territory, right? So roughly at home rates about 9 cents a kilowatt hour is your delivered rate of power. And if you're, like, I keep going back to the Chevy Bolt because it's one of the easiest ones to do the math with, but if your battery is totally dead, let's say, and you charge that car overnight, it's gonna cost you about $6.
Okay, there's two things, and forgive me because I know not a lot.
Totally fine.
Wasn't there, we had talked last time, there was some sort of change coming to electric vehicles, that if, like, how easily it is to update these systems as new technology is developed? Like, if we're doing a 10-year contract, is this gonna be good for all 10
So
years?
the manufacturer, because I mean, electric vehicle chargers are still very new on the market also, but the manufacturer stated that they're foreseeing a minimum of a 10-year lifespan on just the charger itself. Now, all the software and hardware on the inside of it, that gets updated, same as your phone. It's all done remotely and everything. We connect them to cellular data, and they just update all the time.
So I guess there's not a high probability of being obsolete in 6, 8, 10 years or something like
Right.
that. I think it was.
And even if they are at that point, it would be, we would update them basically. Because it would be in our best interest to keep them updated and not let them, deteriorate.
I have a couple questions for you. I wanted to make sure there is not a non-compete. Like, if we start with these 4 and, the market explodes, we can always add more, correct?
Oh,
And,
yeah, most definitely.
I mean, no offense to your company, but if, if there's, we can
Yeah.
always just add.
Yeah.
How many miles would you get for like if you're coming downtown and you're eating dinner, how many, and you're there for an hour, how many miles would you?
Would you get out of the
Would you
charge
get out of
for an
the
hour?
charge, yeah.
So it kind of depends on how big the charger is. So the model, I mean, we're going back and forth between two chargers here. We kind of got to look at the infrastructure and see which one it can support. But let's say we go with the typical one we install, which is like a 40 amp unit. You would roughly get about 30 to 35 miles of charge for that hour that you're plugged in, which should get you mostly where you're on the go. It's more of a convenience thing.
I think some of the conversation was also about the high end ones, the super ones, were like $80,000-$90,000 each. So I mean, that's some of the ones that people are the fast charging ones. But
Yeah,
they're
so that would be like a level. That's what's considered a level 3 unit. This is a
Yeah.
level 2 unit.
Yeah, this is what almost everybody's putting in and around.
Yeah, these are for
stores and
more
stuff.
like typically longer dwell times. Your level 3 units, the ones you speaking of, the fast chargers, those can range, just the charger cost itself without installation or anything can range anywhere from $40,000 to $110,000. And those will charge a car in 15, 20 minutes. We don't necessarily see the need for that because it's not this isn't a halfway point anywhere. You know, you kind of want the dwell time here. It's more of a convenience factor. If we were going to do something larger like that, it's better for like a off the road pull off I-75, or you know, if you're expecting high traffic areas, that kind of
Like
stuff.
rest areas and stuff like that. I think
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
looking at turning them in, giving them a little bit of a restaurant type thing.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Fill 30 minutes, charge your car, and go down the road.
Yep. Exactly. And as it grows out and it gets bigger and bigger, and you know, obviously this is coming, we see it from all the OEMs and everything. As it gets bigger, we can definitely explore those options if that's something you guys are interested in.
How long does it take to charge a car?
So
Empty to full,
it kind of depends again on the car. So
roughly.
I mean, it can range heavily. So you can do it overnight, though. I go back to the Chevy Bolt because it's the most affordable, easiest one to do the math on. But you could charge it overnight.
But if I was here for dinner for 3 hours,
You're going to get a pretty hefty charge. Yeah, you get about 90 miles out of the 250 mile battery. So.
okay.
Who's responsible for making sure your car isn't sitting there over its welcome? You know, if somebody doesn't leave their car in that spot for 2 days, is that something we're gonna be going
think
out there?
The police might have to be involved with that, because like we have 15-minute parking and stuff downtown that they patrol for.
So I mean that's something we dealt with Holly a little bit too, and it was one of the questions that brought up. And each situation is different. So Holly actually put in place where they only wanted electric vehicles to be able to park in these spots, which obviously we would too because it's a revenue source. So they were able to produce tickets for people that were there. That you know, if you got a big truck or something parked there, obviously it's not in use, or if somebody's parked there for 2 days or something like that, I could issue a ticket at that point, I would assume.
Does it do any type of timing where we can see how long the car's been on it, charged, plugged
Yeah.
in?
Oh yeah. Yep.
So the police could come up to it and say, oh, you've been here, if we put like a no longer than 3 hour parking or something, they can see that, or only the car owner?
Neither. I mean, whoever's watching the monetization platform on the back end, usually myself, I can see how long someone's been there. We haven't really seen an issue with that, with anyone parking there for 2 days. I don't know if that's an issue with the spots we looked at, if somebody would necessarily park there for
I don't think so.
that extended period of time. But if that does come to be an issue, we could obviously deal with it. We'd have no issue with working things out with you guys.
So it's piggybacking off of that, because I think we went down a rabbit hole last time. Is it an issue if we're saying like an employee comes in who's there 40 hours a week? You know, is it an issue if they're parking there 8 hours a day, or if someone who lives in one of those apartments or nearby houses parks there on a regular basis? Like, is that?
Are they charging their car?
Are they they're charging their car? Like, do we want to put time limits on those
I mean, if
things?
they're charging their car the whole time they're utilizing
Okay.
it, I
Yeah,
would
but doesn't it become their private, it becomes their own charging station?
Well, if they don't move when they're done charging, I think that's the biggest issue.
Yeah.
Is like,
Yeah, yeah.
But does it?
how do you regulate that?
Is
Like,
it
So
worth
you can tell if
regulating
the
that,
car is
I
full.
guess?
On the there's
Okay.
some LED lights on the front. You can't see it because it's not plugged in now, but there's some LED lights on the bar on the front, and it'll tell you when the car is full.
Can we make the car blow up if it doesn't move again? You are no fun, Pete. Go to your fire station.
Do you guys use a particular app that somebody goes into for paying, on that, or is it universal?
It's kind of a universal app, so it's basically, you can go up to the little QR code on the front there, you can go up and scan that and choose to download the app. It's a pretty widely used app already, it's a very large manufacturer, but there's also an option to just pay online without using the app. So it's pretty simple to use.
Is there a way to, or does it say, hey, your car's been here for 6 hours, your car's at a full charge, you should get it off, you should?
Yeah, so if you have the app, it'll tell you all that stuff. You can see how full it is, how long it's gonna take to get to a full charge, how much it's cost you so far. You can see a lot of different metrics on the app.
And is there any way that a municipality can scan that and see for that car?
For that specific car that's sitting there, not that I'm aware of.
It'd be an interesting thing to add to that, so that if that ever does become an issue, it's an easy.
It's definitely
access
something
say,
to know.
hey,
We have
come
very
back
close
for a charge
working.
over
Yeah.
2 hours, should have been moved by now.
Yeah, I mean, that could also be something if you guys wanted to make sure the dwell times aren't staying too long. Like, we obviously provide signage and everything for all these spots. So if we wanted something custom on the sign, we could do that. I know we've done some downtown Holly, and it states on there, EV charging while plugged in only parking or something like that. I forgot off the top of my head exactly what it says, but.
I think that would resolve a lot of it. They have to, I just wouldn't want somebody sitting there just taking up the space as an electric vehicle if they're not actually using the station. So
Yeah.
once they're charged, they need to move, so.
We could definitely state something more particular on there, if you wanted a 3-hour dwell time only, or whatever you guys decide would be sufficient for your parking areas.
I know these are really popular. I mean, so a colleague of mine has an electric vehicle, and we went up to a conference last week, and so she has to like drive based on where charging stations are, right? To
Yep.
like get, you know, so she had to come off 75 to find, you know, the Walmart parking lot with it and stay there for an hour so she could get the rest of the way, because her vehicle doesn't make it all the way up in one charge.
Yeah.
So it'd be great to have people, to have something like this in my mind, just because people will make Oxford a destination and come here and park to charge if they're headed up north or something, and then they'll go shopping or go to the restaurant and eat here, so
I
see
also
that.
like leaving it at a level 2,
Yeah,
so that
Right.
they can't just be here for 15 minutes.
yeah,
Traffic.
right.
Whole different ball, give them the cost with the other one.
That's
Yeah.
true, but yeah,
You
good
better get a
point.
lot of return on the other one,
Mhm.
pay for it.
Yeah.
I mean, the other one's kinda nice, cause then you have, well, you can only be here for so long, you can get more cars in and out, so those people in particular that are traveling up north, they're looking for those.
The road
speed
trippers,
chargers.
yeah.
They're looking for the lightning chargers on their way, but you have to have people who aren't. We're gonna come in and really sit down and go do some shopping.
Like I said, if that's something you guys feel the need is there for in the future with people going up north and stuff, we can definitely explore those options. So.
I think being on 24, the people going up like Caseville and so forth,
Oh, yeah,
it's
definitely.
right on the way for that type of thing, where that's where I can see those lightnings being, really bringing in that traveler who, yeah, it might be a quick trip, but.
Yeah, so if that's something you guys are interested in, there's more grants and everything coming down the pipeline for that kind of stuff through the public utilities and all that we can look into for this specific area.
I don't know if the level 3's like where we want to be right now, but when your company's looking at our infrastructure, will you check out even if that's a viable option for us to hook in right there?
I don't even have to look at it, so
Okay.
basically usually for level 3 stuff, we just bring a whole new electrical service in just for that charger, because it's very big usually. It's a lot of
I
power.
just
Oh,
don't
no,
know
you're
enough to
totally, you're
know
totally fine.
it.
So that's something it's actually easier to put those in a sense where, because you can just bring your own service in and we can pretty much put it wherever we want within reason.
I assume those lightnings go at a higher charge per,
Yeah, they take 480 volt, 3-phase power, so.
so you're charging a pretty decent upcharge for that. but-
Yeah, usually your monetization is a little bit higher on those for the convenience factor, yep.
And those are the ones where you need to put you can't be here for longer than a half hour.
So those ones are fine if you want to sit there for half an hour, because they start charging you for sitting there when you're not charging the car, and it's more expensive,
So
so
really,
it really gets you.
gets them moving.
Yeah.
So when that app goes off their phones, their car's charged, they get out and go move it, otherwise they're gonna start incurring additional fees?
That one?
No, the higher one you were talking
Oh,
about.
yeah, but usually they're so quick that no one's walking away, you know, if your car's
Right.
charging 15 minutes. Hopefully you're not walking away, I mean, you're using that, you're usually trying to get somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah, Allison?
I'm sorry, this is my last question.
Okay.
No, you're
So,
okay.
like our office is only open, I mean, during like business hours.
Mhm.
So if there's an issue with the charger, they're calling your company, correct, and not?
So they'll call the
Call the
manufacturer, there's an
manufacturer.
800 number, but in a roundabout way, we are the ones that service the unit also, so we would just be
There's like
notified.
a charging problem.
There's
or,
a, yeah,
or a,
yeah.
like financial, I don't know, debit card.
Yep, yeah, they call the 800 number, and that usually takes care of it pretty quickly. If it doesn't and the charger needs to be fixed, or somebody hits it with a snow plow or whatever, it happens, it happens.
It is
We're-
Michigan.
We're the ones that fix it, yeah, that's why we use that. Yep.
Okay. Ashley?
I have a hypothetical question.
Okay.
Say I wanted to charge a bus. Would that work, or would I need something like the level 3, or is it a totally different unit?
It kind of depends how big is the bus, how big is the battery, how quick do you want it to charge. That's kind of. So I mean, are you guys thinking about electric buses for the schools
Totally
and stuff?
hypothetical.
Totally hypothetical. You would probably want a little bit of a bigger charger, depending on the battery. I don't know how big the batteries are in those, so you might be fine with a level 2 still, like an 80 amp version, which is double the size of that.
Trolley.
I mean, the unit itself is the same
Like the
size.
size of a trolley.
Yeah, if there was a trolley that went back and forth.
I'd have to know how big
Was
the
that code
battery
word
is
trolley?
and how often you're planning, if it's not being used at night. If it's not being used at night and you have 5-6 hours to charge it, then more than likely you could probably get away with a level 2, something like that,
Okay.
which would be relatively on the cheaper end,
So if-
hopefully, but.
Municipal worker pulled up with their trolley. Could charge it?
Hey, feel free, if you can get in that parking spot, I mean,
That is true.
Parking spaces in the entire village. I can't believe you guys picked those.
They were right next. They were right next to the power panels.
They're next to the power panels, and they're small and difficult to get into, which most electric vehicles are pretty compact, right? I mean,
and we don't have to cut open your parking lot.
Yeah.
You got some nice parking lots over there, I don't wanna cut them up too bad.
yeah.
Do you need anything beyond just like the charging, electrical? Is there any, do you need extra spaces for the cars? Do you need, extra lighting for somebody because of the hookups? Anything else needed beyond
No.
just the system?
Good to go.
So we did have quite a few questions.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, I had one more. I believe I know the answer to this question, but all car manufacturers are using the exact same charge plug. And like you could like a Tesla, a Chevy, a Ford, they're all the same into it?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
So this isn't, in Europe it's standardized because they're smart, but Tesla is different than everyone else. They have their own plug, and then Japanese manufacturers have a different plug, and then everything domestic and, you know, your European cars and stuff use a certain plug. Now, Teslas come with an adapter. This is the most standardized plug. It's usually what we install. It does all your domestic vehicles and everything. And then Teslas come with an adapter from the factory to use these chargers.
So
that's
that,
not-
that comes with the sale of the car.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
correct.
they carry it around.
Yeah, if you're a Tesla owner, usually.
I thought they all had the same, I
Yeah.
thought we were smart.
Your phone charger.
Europe's beating us, fortunately. So,
Well, Greg, thanks for coming out a lot.
yeah.
Yeah,
no
thank
problem.
you.
Coming out.
You said, I mean,
You're gonna leave this one here for us to use?
if you want to wire it up in here, that's fine with me.
Stick it in the
And
garage.
Joe has my number if you guys.
I'm very surprised you got to use the word juice box.
Yeah,
Me too.
Yeah.
That's an interesting
Copyrighted.
trademark
It must
question.
be, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, well.
Did you guys fight for that with the other juice box, the little thing with the straw in it?
Well,
That's the manufacturer.
Has it, I mean, they're a $100 billion company.
All right, they win.
They're in a bunch of resources and stuff, so I think they had
They're well funded.
to get
Please,
that.
I'm gonna hold it.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it, and then we'll discuss it more as we go forward and get with you guys and see if there's some kind of decision that we wanna make
For your
or.
hypothetical trolley, you guys have questions about it?
Bus.
I have a question.
If you have,
It's an actual trolley though.
if you have questions about it and you want to
I can't put
I
it.
will.
ask electrical stuff, feel free to reach out. We'll
Okay.
answer questions.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I can't put a time limit on it.
I'm sorry, but isn't no one putting chargers in their new parking lot?
I don't know, I haven't seen that on the parking lot. On the site plan for the parking lot that they're doing?
Yeah, that was their
You see
intention.
anything about charges out there, Pete, on the parking lot for the site plan for NODA?
No, I didn't-
I just where their intention was. Or maybe they were talking about doing it in the future, because I told them they needed to get the electrician out there before they pour the new pavement.
It seems like don't they put the
Because it
buses?
seems like a silly thing to do the pavement and then in a year or two put in charge stations.
Do the buses go in at night though, or do they all park outside? Do
Well,
they?
they were looking at, that's why they were
Alright.
looking at fencing in that backyard, and that was,
And then some of the power though might be able to come from the back. Along that little corridor might come from the back too, to come into the back parking lot. Maybe they could just tap it from the back.
because when I was talking to Lynn, I was telling her check on that and check on heating, the engine heaters underneath there, and putting those in, because things that can save money overall. I'll talk to her again about it.
So Bob, you looked at the proposed contract for state contracting. What would be the next steps if we wanted to move forward?
Well, we would, there's some issues that we'd have to doctor around in the contract, but
Okay.
I think you guys need to come to the first critical decision. Do you want to do it? Is this the program you want to go with versus the revenue sharing program with the other company?
Mm-hmm.
And then we can get into the contract.
Okay. Does anyone on council oppose state contracting or oppose the ideal in general?
I think it can bring people in, and I like the idea of not having the overhead up front, and just having the space.
I agree.
And, I mean, we don't want like Kim or like Vicky to be in charge of like fielding,
Yeah, we don't need
Yeah,
any
I
extra
would-
but only
administration.
from Monday.
We
We don't want
Monday
to be
to
the complaint
Thursday.
center. We don't want to be the
Yeah.
complaint center.
No
Yeah.
ownership.
This is totally turnkey, the way I read the contract. It's
Yeah.
totally turnkey, and
Plus the village gets some kind of
Yeah.
you
revenue share.
can get a real
Small
feel for it.
percentage.
It doesn't seem like a lot.
Yeah, that's okay if we're not
It's
doing
not
anything.
going to alter your budget a
Right.
lot.
Okay. Do you want a motion for us to move forward, or you want just general direction?
A motion would be good, but again, Bob is gonna have to bring back, I guess your motion could be, let's go forth with the proposal for state contracting based on contract being brought back to council.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, let's work, yeah.
Or we could
Okay.
just bring it back next month and you could do it then, I guess.
I guess I'd like to get a motion
Yeah, let's-
in order, just so,
I
so
think
I would move what Joe said, so move to, proceed with having, our village attorney review the contract with state contracting in an effort to, engage with state contracting on the electric vehicle charging
And
stations.
we were looking at the two, what you talked about, the locations,
Yeah.
right? Right, okay,
With those locations.
right.
Okay.
I'll support that.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, motion made by Cook, supported by, I think I heard Mo first, is that right? Okay, do a roll call vote.
Talbot,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Bordeaux.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries, thank you so much. Okay, 7B, Scripter Park Pavilion, retaining wall and road proposal.
Okay, so, let me get to my. Initially, we talked about the bathhouse and when Don Brantley brought that all up. But looking at the limits of the grant itself, we thought that might put it so high that we would have to fund like maybe 50% or more. And that's the maximum grant. If we go maybe a little bit less or the maximum, I think our chances of getting the grant are better because they only have so many grants and so much money to give out. So we thought if we just stick with the retaining wall and the pavilion, that'd be much more, better size of a grant. We set up our 25% match anyways. We don't have any solid numbers yet back. I think we were in the 40,000 range for the pavilion, or I'm sorry, the retaining wall. And Roe's still working on some preliminary numbers for the pavilion. So we wanna make sure, like, one of the things, we went and looked at one of our Seymour Lake Park, have it enclosed underneath so the birds don't get up there and nest and cause issues and have it be dirty. Similar spot as we thought, right near the bathhouse out there, or the bathroom house. But we just thought it might be better to size the grant and a better, smaller bite.
Yeah, I agree, whatever we can do that is more likely for us to get the grant funding and move forward. I think our downtown's so beautiful now, it'd be nice to have a beautiful park to go with it, so I'd really like to focus a lot of our, whatever we can do to improve that, so, Ashley?
So, is there somebody we could talk to at Oakland County, or do we know? I would rather go all in and ask and then come back and say, hey, we only have, $25,000 to give you, then not, or come back and say, here's what the $100,000 or whatever it might be. But I don't want to put all our eggs in one basket and it's just a flat denial. Like, can they come back and say we're only going to give you a partial, or could we work that into our grant to say, like, here's plan A, here's plan B, plan A would do this, plan B would do this, like.
I think reading through the booklet, they want you to have it more streamlined. They want you to, because there are design grants parts that you can do as well. Then you have to wait 2 years to get another grant. You're only eligible every 2 years. And I think the grant for the millage is only like 10-year cycle that they've been approved for, right? I can't remember when the voters of Oakland County determined that, but I think it was a 10-year program.
I'm just nervous that if we don't ask for what we really want, we're not ever going to get it. And if we're on, we have at least another 2 years before we ask for the next part. Maybe if the funding's still there, like, my personal preference would just be to go for it all, but I also don't want to lose out if that's just not how they work. I don't know.
Yeah, because if our costs got up to, because the bathrooms would be much more, now you get a general contractor involved and maybe some brick masons and things like that, where a lot more contractors can build the pavilion and it's still finish it off, make it nice. I think the cost would be nearly double. So now we're getting a $100,000 grant, putting in $100,000 of our own, versus a $100,000 grant, putting in $25,000 of our own. And so we just thought, well, and as we work next year to work towards our parks plan get renewed, then that is an option for us too, the DNR trust fund grants and stuff too, which those you can apply for every year.
So I would really want, I'm somewhat piggybacking off of what Ashley said. Even if we don't put forward our ultimate end goal, I definitely, whatever we do, I want to put, while we're out there and putting money with, electricians and plumbing and whatnot, I want us to be mindful of what, if we only do phase 1, doing so in a way that is laying the infrastructure to expand and be mindful of how we move forward and build upon.
So let me touch base on that too. So what I have, the goal is to have next month to have a concept plan. If this gets approved, then they would have a concept plan that we would utilize to turn in for the Oakland County Park grant. Mm-hmm. And part of that was also to address some of the additional parking, perhaps more ADA parking around the cul-de-sac that's down there at the end of the parking lot. So the plan would still be expandable, I guess, might be part for the bathhouse area or something like that. But the retaining wall is something that we've addressed a few years ago, even that it's getting pretty long and overdue, I think, for some replacement. That's more of a need than a desire, I guess, whereas the pavilion is more of a desire.
My second part to this is, I don't know if you would need direction from council to do something like this, but I would really like to throw a lot of man hours at writing this proposal in order to give us the best chances to obtain this grant. So I'm not sure where we stand with Nicole.
It's as grants goes, it's relatively straightforward and not too complex. They have 4 or 5 different areas they want you to describe. Maximum words 250. I mean, there's maximum words on there all the time. They say, explain it, but don't go overboard. They kind of want it short and sweet and concise. But they would like to see a concept plan. They don't want to hear just something on the back of a napkin or something. They do want something that's kind of professional, but short and sweet is kind of how they don't word it that way, but how it's going to benefit. And some of the areas, and that's why I took it right out of their the grant program goals. Our facilities work right into that. Renovating existing park facilities, fishing, hunting, beaches, boating, picnic areas. So the things that we're proposing fall right into their goals already. So
I hope you did not take that as a insult against your capabilities. I just want to make sure you have all the resources.
Right, and if I needed to, if it was very complex and then we needed maybe a road to help with it, something like that, I'd be absolutely, or a Parks Rec plan, are very in-depth. We'll find out more as we go through that again to re-up that. It won't be as bad renewing the one we have, but this one, I've looked through the booklet. This year's booklet isn't out, so I'm looking at last year's, but I don't expect it to be much different. But it's pretty straightforward as grants go. It's easier, I think, than the DNR one.
Where do we stand with the memorial plan? Do the kids have they wanted like a rectangular sized area?
Yep.
Has that been worked out? What's the, because the need for bathrooms with that coming in to be upgraded, really, that'll bring in a lot more
Yeah.
people and that concern.
And the bathroom part of the bathhouse out there isn't that bad. It's the walkout basement and stuff like that Mr. Brantley has a lot of issues with. It as dry as it is and much gravel and sand is around here, that it's really a damp, moist basement. They really like to do store garbage in it. It's a 50-year-old building. It was designed as such. So the bathrooms are there and usable now, but getting rid of that old building that's really getting obsolete and a new, fresher building would be much better.
Are you talking about moving it to somewhere else?
Similar to the spot it's in now, but just maybe adjacent to it.
And is that all outside of the area of the planned
Yes.
memorial? Is any of
Yes.
this going to affect that
No.
in any way? Is that all agreed upon now?
No.
Okay.
And I was gonna touch base on that. We didn't put it on the agenda, but I shared something with you guys in the email last week there. And Mo and I spoke more about it today. This area down towards the lake where the bathrooms are and where the pavilion we're thinking would go is well beyond where the area that they were looking for their memorial. It's much closer to the road. But that, and to touch base on that and further that, I've only heard from them twice in the last 2 months. They had a plan. It was huge. We didn't even have a spot for it in the park. The thing they rolled out didn't have scale to it, but what they had laid out was just really large. I mean, the paper had on was large too, and so we're trying to find a spot. I thought the way the angle of the road is that they could maybe do more of a fan out thing, kind of like the Veterans Memorial is, like a wall and angles. But they came back and said, no, we really want a square. So we tried to come back with a different square area that's smaller, like a 90 or 100 foot by 100 foot that might fit in that kind of triangle area that we have because of the angle of Glaspie. And they haven't responded back since that last email to them. And like I said, Mo and I are talking today about the trees. The window for the trees being planted is closing. Pete, is there a window in the spring for trees to go in?
Up until probably middle of May, end of May.
Okay. So if for some reason, they miss this window in the fall, and it takes them a while to get their ducks in a row, get the families to pick the trees, there's perhaps another window in the spring to do the planting. A couple of the youngsters that we met with are off to college. A couple of them are now seniors. There are a couple adults. Mr. Schilling, I think Justin's father was there the day we met, and another woman who was a teacher counselor was there when we met in the park. So they're working more with the group. Now they have a group email that they're just last week she shared with me, I think it was, that to communicate with them as a group versus the one individual that came and spoke that night. I don't know what all the discussions they're having. I don't know. I don't know if it's fragmented on their end or if they're having different perspectives or not, but.
It's hard, the kids are moving on,
So, okay, that reminded me of a conversation I had.
College and-
So earlier today, Allison asked me, and it was a good question there, Allison, about the Oxford Resilience Center. Have I spoke to the director down there to get a little feedback on, and related to an item later on about the flags. But when I spoke to her on the walk back tonight from downtown, she's in Colorado, and she happened to be at the Columbine Memorial while I was on the phone with her. And so she's seen several of them around the Colorado area where she's at, and she's learning more about other resiliency centers. And one of the things she learned when it comes to memorials is sometimes it's better to wait even 2 or 3 years out, because if you go too fast, it's different than what you would have wanted if you really let it sink in. That's one of the things she's hearing from people out there who's going to these other memorial sites. Columbine is one that she was at, and there was a couple other ones, unfortunately, that they have and she was at. We weren't talking about that. It just happened that's where she was when I spoke to her. And all about the conversation with the flags and both sides of the equation. Those who want to see a memorial or a remembrance, and those who want to move on. There's this whole tug of war. But the memorial part did come up. and I told her, obviously, the council's working with the student group. And she said people want to usually kind of react and get it done, but then she's found that sometimes waiting is better.
I don't think that plan was a really cool looking drawing of it, but it was just the four corners that they
Yeah.
were really gonna work at this point in time, and that middle
Yep.
section
Do the
is
infill
gonna be
later.
years
Yep.
down the road, and so maybe the size they're asking for seems really big, but it's that idea of you just don't know how big they're gonna go or what they're gonna do in the years that come, and it may be 10 years down the road. It's a great looking drawing. I'm assuming you saw the drawing with the trees and the.
Yeah, the one just out on paper?
Yeah.
Yes, that's the one Mr. Schilling had. It was big, rolled out. It was like 4 foot square.
Oh, really? I just saw a picture, so it looks
Okay,
smaller.
it was
I mean,
big.
but-
And it didn't have any scale or any.
No, it didn't. That's
dimensions
what
on it.
I said. There's
But
like
you can
no,
tell-
you can't tell what the
It was huge, whatever it
dimensions
was.
is here.
Yeah.
I think they give me something like a 80 by 160 or something
Yeah,
like that.
there
kind
was,
of idea.
and we didn't really have a good spot like that that didn't interfere with some underground stuff at Scripter Park, because you have the lines going out, electrical and water going out to the pump houses, well houses.
I'm sorry, what's the name of the woman from the Resiliency Center? She's,
Jamie, I can't remember her last name.
okay.
I think it's,
Well, maybe Ms. Jamie, could you provide her information to that group in case, if they would like to
Talk with
Yeah.
talk with her,
Sure.
if she'd like to share anything with them and.
yeah. Yeah. So
So
we've
I
been
don't
paying
want
a
to
little.
put like our influence on it too heavily either, but
Right, and again, you guys had all decided way back in the spring and about planting the 4 trees anyways, quietly, no pomp and circumstance to do it, and then they came up with a plan which was kind of similar. They wanted to do 4 trees. So I think that made it come together good, but,
Can
we
you
want
reach out to them to let them know that window is closing with getting the plantings done, just
Yeah.
to make sure they know that?
Yeah,
with the
and
school.
I think in the one email to them, I may have mentioned that to them, because initially there was a talk of putting large trees in. You would use a tree spade, so you're very limited on the species you can pick from, because you gotta be able to find them. When they asked about, they really wanted to give the families the opportunity to choose whatever tree they wanted, that's okay, but now you're gonna find a smaller tree at a nursery somewhere, which, that's fine, if you wanna let them, give them the option. So that made it easier, I think, and we just gotta hear back from them on that, but
Yeah.
if they wanna get something done this year, they need to nail down the footprint, that's it, right? Get us the
Okay.
footprint, get the trees in the ground, and then they can work on the infill later.
Ashley, did you have a comment? No. Okay, I'm gonna shift back to, the Scripter Park proposal from Rose. So if the scope of services that's provided, that council can make a motion on tonight, would this, this doesn't include, this just includes, I should say, the retaining wall and the pavilion.
Yeah,
And
the
then,
concept plan of the whole park might be shown, using an
Okay.
aerial to show, and shown.
Can we expand the scope if we want to look at other things, just to have them look at it all at once, or do you
Yeah.
want them just to look at these things for purposes of this grant, so
So-
we can move it forward?
Initially when I had reached out to Roe and they gave me a back proposal for the concept plan, it included the bathrooms.
Okay,
It was $100 more. So I said, well, you know what, maybe just take the bathrooms out, we might wait, and it came down to $100. Okay, for $100 more, they can put the bathroom location-wise on there, right?
Yeah.
And maybe when we did a little online call, Don and I with Roe, one guy out of the Pier office and then Paul O'Meara out of a different office, they were showing us prefab bathrooms that you see at parks and national parks and stuff like that. They thought what really are nice. They go in, they're like I said, prefab, all designed. You buy them, but when they're looking at them, they're pretty pricey. You don't have to go with those, of course. You can do a stick built on site with brick and block. We want something that would be blocked, something that can withstand. But they could add that on. So in this concept plan would be something we'd use for our grant submission. But it really doesn't get us much work that we can use for the actual design and engineering.
that'd be
of it.
separate anyway?
Yes.
Okay,
There's not a lot of overlap. I'm not gonna say, oh, we're gonna spend $3,700 here, but it's gonna save us $3,000 down the road.
Right.
No. It'll say very, very little of this would go towards the actual design and bid specs of the project if it comes down to it.
So if I'm hearing you right, what you're saying is you found that if you did the bathroom and everything else that we really need up front and the bathroom, that it would be a lot more upfront or cost of ours that wouldn't be covered by the grant. And you were thinking you would prefer to try to save the bathrooms for a future grant that would cover the entire bathroom and
Because of the
basically split
limitations,
it
yeah,
into two.
because of the $100,000 limitation on the Oakland County grant. But we could incorporate the bathroom for $100 more on this design, the concept plan, we could have the bathroom put on the concept plan, and then we could use that for any future grant. Whether it's a DNR one next year, or 2 years down the road for the Oakland one. So for $100 more, I would think put the bathrooms on there, at least location-wise, and
Yeah, I just want it to be the most efficient use. I mean, if we have to pay a little bit more to expand the scope and we don't have to go back a second time, but if it's not useful for what you're planning, then I
well,
don't
we
wanna
can
do
still
it,
use
but
that same concept plan though, for the
other-
future.
For future grants.
Oakland plan, or the following year, part of our parks plan, this is the concept plan for Scripter Park specifically, would be put right into the parks plan,
Okay,
and so it would be beneficial.
okay. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
So is this are we asking Roe to do like our dream big plan, or what am I?
It doesn't have anything to do with the student memorial part of it.
Okay, I just want, yeah.
That's part. This is limited to the retaining wall, a pavilion, and bathrooms potentially.
I just want to make
Bathrooms.
sure,
The space,
this is maybe just me overthinking it, but I want to make sure it doesn't interfere with that too much, but also is a cohesive unit. And not just like a very choppy, awkwardly, like a house that's been built upon and
Right.
built upon. type.
so if we did the plan, the way it is now, it's gonna show the existing infrastructure and parking, and then it would show the retaining wall area, and it's gonna show cross sections of the retaining wall and stuff and cost, and then it would show a location of the pavilion, some design of the pavilion, and then perhaps a location for the bathrooms. The part area that's being thought of and promoted for the student memorial would still be there and available, and could always be just superimposed on there, you know, as, oh, let's update our plan and add theirs into it now that we know where they're at, how big it is.
I'd move to approve the village manager to sign a contract for engineering services for Scripter Park concept plan with Road Professional Services with the expanded scope and related increased costs, whatever that may be.
Support. Bordeaux.
Any discussion on the motion? Okay, so motion made by Cook, supported by Bourgeois. Let's do a roll call vote.
Peugeot,
Yes?
Talbot,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Cook.
Yes. Motion carries, thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Next up is the museum use agreement. And that's a separate copy we have here.
Yeah.
So I, just using very basic information in very basic terms, put together a lease agreement. Received some great comments on some language changes. We have a few adjustments to be made. So really just looking for any input you have, which I've already started your changes. Joe had a couple of changes. And then when we have a workable, what we believe is workable, we wanted to throw it over the fence to the museum to see their thoughts on it and hopefully have an approvable document at your next meeting.
Yeah, I think with some of the changes I know that Ashley points out being
Yeah, they were
a
great.
museum professional are really helpful. I'd like to give it one more look after those are made, but I don't know
Yeah.
that we need to
No,
come.
no, what I'll do is, Joe and I had other things we were gonna change on it too. We just didn't make all the changes until we got here tonight. So we'll get a revised out to you, and then if it seemingly looks movable, we'll move it over to the museum and see what their thoughts are. And I tried not to put anything in there that was offensive or aggressive, or I tried to keep it very basic. I know the relationship is good, so we're not trying to outsmart anybody here.
Feedback?
Well, overall, I mean, it's very like what you would expect in an agreement. So
Yeah, it's a little bit vanilla, it's just
just,
kinda,
I didn't respond to everyone because I didn't want to break any rules. So I had asked Bob regarding repairs and maintenance. Basically, that all work must comply with the National Park Service laws, regulations, orders, and museum best practices. That we would get 30 days notice. I know it says on like, I think section 11, that we would be notified in writing, but at least 30 days would be my preference. And then also back in section 10, that we may not remove rubbish because rubbish could be museum collections. Just depending on how they define it or what they're looking at. So just
Yep.
trying to cater a little bit to their needs a little bit more. The second part of that, maybe we can chat later. on that.
yeah.
Okay.
And we're gonna change we keep this building under our general insurance policy, so we're gonna shift the burden to them just for content insurance.
Which is,
Didn't we
yeah,
already do that?
yeah, that's the way it is now.
Okay,
We want to make sure it's spelled out, right, though?
okay.
Yeah.
You're
The
almost
one
have a
point
panic
that and I want them, I kinda want them to be, I kinda want them, yeah, I want them to be in charge of making sure they feel covered for contents,
Good.
right?
Yes, we'll make it explicit.
Yeah, the one part
Crystal clear.
I was concerned about, what, last year when the DDA and Kelly was trying to do the skyline lighting to the downtown, which
Yeah.
would have been a heavy lift to get everybody involved and to say yes. The one no I know she got was the was the museum.
Right.
And it's like, well, it's our building, but they're the tenant. So in number 10, that's the one part, it says repairs and maintenance, that the tenants shall be responsible for the exterior of the building, which includes the roof, walls, and everything. If they're gonna be responsible for the roof, they might be, I don't want them to say, well, we're responsible for the roof, so you can't go up there. Or you're responsible for the roof, or the exterior of the building, so you can't attach lights.
That one, I think that's something we might have to discuss more,
Yep.
figure out, like, I understand when they explained why they didn't want the building cleaned, but there are companies,
That's
whether they're
specialized.
locally or not, that could actually clean and do the limestone appropriately. So that's I don't have a set answer on that
Yeah,
yet.
I just don't wanna pigeonhole ourselves, and we put this in there and just say, well, that gives them trump to stop the whole downtown lighting.
Yeah, there needs to be clarity on that, I
Yeah.
agree, because, they're leasing it, for
$1 a year.
And so it makes sense that they're responsible for all the maintenance and stuff, but it also makes sense for the village to have a say.
Then
and
I
the
wouldn't
lights
make
on the
it,
top, frankly.
I would recommend no vagueness. Let's
Right.
just come out and say it.
Yeah, I agree.
The one thing I keep wavering back and forth when it comes to that is because they are technically the museum historic preservation experts, they can make the best call. And however, it being our building, whether we're here or not, like, it could be Sally Ann and Joe who don't know anything moving forward and could be taking the power washer and just blasting it, or like, that's where I get concerned. So I don't.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't want
Well,
a figurative or a future DDA director like taking a staple gun to the building and like I don't know. It needs to be,
National Park
but yeah.
Service should
Okay.
cover that.
Get a hot glue gun with banners.
Yeah. Okay. How long is the actual term of the lease?
So, I made it termless. Its term is until it's terminated by either party with written notice. So either party can terminate, and that would terminate the lease.
So why do some contracts say for a period of 10 years with, the option to
I know.
renew every 10 years, when some, it's like, why don't you just call it what it is? It has no
I know,
term.
that's what
So that's what you did.
that's what I did.
Okay. I didn't know if there was like a legal reason for
Some
that.
people try to do these 99-year things, and then that has legal implications of
Something
being
about rule of
potentially a purchase.
perpetuities?
Yeah.
What's that rule against, I don't know.
Well,
word.
the rule against perpetuities was best explained in the movie called Body Heat with William Hurt.
Oh
If-
boy,
if you
maybe
go
I shouldn't
back-
have used it.
If you go back and watch that movie, you'll understand the rule against perpetuities.
Yeah, I think I remember it now,
There's your homework.
actually.
Which means you cannot create a right in a person that is yet to be born.
Right,
That's the
okay.
rule, yeah. So-
Nothing to do with lease agreement.
No,
Thank
so
you.
here the problem is sometimes if you do a 99-year lease, then it becomes a conveyance.
Mm-hmm.
and it has lawful, so I think the best thing to do is just have termination provisions.
And there's our TED Talk.
Any other?
But please, Kelsey, please watch that movie. Kathleen Turner is in it as well.
Is this written up, so like, let's say we say that it has to be cleaned, and it's time to get it cleaned. So, we're gonna bring somebody in unless you wanna go ahead and bring in somebody who knows better. I mean, is there anything in this that says we can say you have to clean it, or
So I do think
that's what I'm,
you could, if you put in the stipulation of the NPS stuff, laws, regulations, and orders,
think
if there
that
was a real
covers it.
issue, we could go back and say, your best practice, as stated in your contract, says every 10 years or when it is at this state, needs to have X, Y, and Z happen.
To preserve the building or whatever.
yeah, I mean, I'm even thinking more so, we're gonna put lighting on this building. We've got a guy contracted, this is the lighting, you want a guy to do it, or do you wanna hire your own guy because you feel like somebody might know better how to do it to this?
Standard.
Yeah, and if you wanna go ahead and do that, you can go ahead and do that, we understand there's reasons why you think it might be best done in a different way, but this is what we're doing every winter, or this winter, or, you know, I don't know if that's, well, that's not legalese at all, but I mean, can it be?
I understand what you're capturing there.
It'd be to preserve our right to do so because it's our building, but do so in a manner that they agree with or is proper, I guess.
That they're given the opportunity
Well, why
to
wouldn't we
choose
just,
their own services.
why wouldn't we get like a right of first refusal to conduct the activity? Otherwise, we
Through
have.
their own services.
Yeah, otherwise we have the right to do
Make
that.
them put the lights
Yeah, that's,
So
yes.
that's what you're trying to say.
That's what I'm trying to say, exactly.
I got it. Makes sense.
I feel like that's a slippery slope. Like, I'm very torn, because if somebody came to my museum and said, I'm just gonna do it, like, you can do it your way or it's gonna happen anyway, like,
Well,
But
what,
it's not
I know.
yours, that's the.
I know.
it's a
would
little-
you like a provision that says they have the right to review and approve our plans to do it, but not the right to,
as long as all parties are complying to current best practices, I'm fine with it.
you see, that's a much more easy and global way to handle the issues. So that if we're gonna do lighting, we do lighting in compliance with those
Yes.
practices. If,
That I'm comfortable with.
right, so maybe what we say in that paragraph where we refer to that, we say that would apply to lighting, displays, maintenance, cleaning, it applies to everything that happens to the museum,
Exterior,
exterior
right,
wise.
because they're pretty much,
What about windows, for example? Because they did put in new windows. How does that shake out? Like their interior, exterior, like
That,
where,
that under this lease would have been something they would have had to notify us about.
because I know they might have already changed it, but when they were put in, they were not what I would consider best practices at the time, but they had a plan to rectify it in the future.
So maybe that,
that's only
Maybe.
been a couple of years.
yeah. Maybe we have to really we have to be mindful of the lists we create that goes along with compliance with that standard.
I just, those little things that I know that we're,
Yeah.
like real life that we're dealing with.
You'll get it to look at it.
Okay,
Are
thank
we
you.
gonna become the paint police? Cause our real problem with that.
No, we're becoming the preservers of the structure under standards that are not ours.
But are some of those things something that would be it has to be done? Or is it just because we think the building needs to be cleaned?
No, it's for preservation purposes. Nothing in here. So cleaning is destructive, even if you just go home and dust. So you're not really going to be the paint police. You're following the best practices to keep the building preserved for as long as possible. I believe we were given it to us as a village to have as a museum, if I'm not mistaken. And so I feel like it's our charge to follow best practices moving forward.
I don't wanna be the paint police.
I hope you never paint that building. I'd be very angry.
But if they chose to paint the building,
then I think that we would have a big problem because that's not historic preservation, and I know.
I think you'd have to go back and read what the
Right.
Oxford Bank gave us that building for.
Well,
Yes.
I think we need to be good stewards of
I haven't seen that down.
the property that we, like, it's not,
So where we go, we
be
want.
good stewards for the property to, with the best of intentions, and not be the paint police, but yes, I absolutely would not want them to go paint that building purple. Like, that would be a
I think
point where we would
it
have to
is all
step in.
It's all addressed in these standards, so I think
Okay.
we're splitting hairs. Like, we can always fall back on NPS and say, what is the standards? And they do adjust and adapt over time, and so chances are none of us are ever going to get in the weeds with it, nor will any future council folk. It's just more when we see big things happening that we're made aware and that it's done the right way. Like, I would rather them come and say, we're putting in new windows. Well, are they UV protected? Well, no. Okay, so do we have $1,000 somewhere where we could give UV protection so that they're done right the first time? So, like,
Okay.
that's kind of where I'm
I get it.
thinking.
Mo, is there a document, a donation document, purpose document?
I believe if you read, I believe I've seen something, I think it's in the property transfer, because it also states that if it stops being what Oxford Bank wanted to be, reverts back to them. And there's paperwork.
Maybe on the deed or a deed restriction or something?
Yeah,
Okay, we'll look.
don't make me go in the basement.
No, we'll-
Like, I got it.
It's on Kim. She loves it down
And
there.
there's a folder, I believe it's written in red pen, it says Oxford Bank property.
I got it, I understand.
Okay, cool.
Amazing.
I think it's Nancy Miller's handwriting, who cares?
There's no, we don't want this to ever become a, we just
Wow.
wanna do something and we just do it and we do something that
Right,
comes to
her
build.
memory is
That's
amazing.
just-
Right.
We've got people who are experts that are in there.
Okay,
Any further discussion on this
Understood.
item? No? Okay, great, thank you. All right, moving on to new business. A, DDA vacancy appointment recommendation. I'd like to invite Callie Westbrook up, if you don't mind. Talked a little bit about our applicants.
you said applicants?
We have two, yeah. So Grace Carey and Bryce Clark are the two, and they have met with the DDA chair, and then they came in and presented in front of the DDA board, but actually met them, it's kind of funny. So Bryce came out and volunteered just randomly with his wife for our spring cleanup. And we got to talking, and then I found out he lived in the district, and I was like, hold the phone. That's great news. And they run, he was an Oxford grad. His mom works in the district, and he just has such a love for this community, and so does his wife. I think that he would make a great addition. And then Grace, she actually came into my office to tell me about a grant to make sure that it was on our radar. And I started chatting with her and found out that she lives in the district too. So it was just really cool to see, you know, two young people who really want to be involved in the community and that are passionate about it and really are committed. So I would love to, you know, recommend to council that they would join our DDA board.
Well, so you have spots for both.
We do. We have two spots. Yep.
I don't want another address, but I'm just wondering what street they are.
Yep. So Grace is Washington, and then Bryce is right off of M24. He's right past Broadway. Yep. Without giving like totally specific, because there's only so many houses.
South Washington.
Yeah. We could walk to both their houses easily from
She
here.
walked out of the DDA meeting, I know the other night.
Yeah, yep.
Walk back there.
Well, above one of the businesses, yep.
Great.
I know Grace. We ended up both being at a round table with Debbie Dingle at U of M talking about water affordability. And then I was sitting right next to her. Yeah. It was interesting. I sat right next to her and she's like, oh, I'm from Oxford. Oh, I'm from Oxford. Oh, who are you? And yeah, her background fit. And she's like, yeah, I talked to Kelly. And I'm like, you have to apply.
Literally like 3 days before is when she walked into my office, so
And then last week I was at a conference presenting in Traverse City, and she literally did the presentation just before mine. She works for MML Foundation, and so she did one and then I did one, and so we just keep crossing paths. So she's wonderful. I haven't gotten the pleasure of meeting Bryce yet, but I love the fact that he came out and was volunteering on his own and then wanted to be involved. So that's really cool. So thank you, Kelly, for finding.
Yeah, and they both have
Great
been in
additions.
touch this whole time. This conversation has been a couple of months long, which I really like because it shows their commitment that they continue to follow up and are volunteering for things and want to be involved and have come to DDA meetings and sat through them.
That's great.
It's great
Yeah.
now to pick one out of them.
Yeah, so
I know.
I didn't have to want to pick one.
So we only have to have one resident of the district appointed to the board, but we can have more because we have the open spot. So it's fine to
There's no
appoint
prohibition.
both of them. So, okay, I would move to approve the appointment of Grace Carey and Bryce Clark to serve as members of the Oxford Downtown Development Authority.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Cook, seconded by Ross. Any discussion on the motion?
We don't know, their terms will coincide with those that they are replacing, so we'll have to choose which one of them
Okay.
replaces the resident.
Flip a
One of
coin.
them would be in Laura Herford, was the last resident we had.
Gotcha.
We'll have to see what their term is, so they may be, one or both of them may be expiring at the end of this year, just
Okay.
not sure what their window is.
I would recommend that Bryce be the business owner or whatever, because he
Yeah.
does have a investment property.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Doesn't that where,
too.
right.
doesn't he live there too? Is that where he lives?
It is, but it's like a duplex kind of
Yeah.
thing, so, almost like. Yeah, not trying to.
So Grace Carey would take
The
Laura
res-
Murphy's
She would be the resident,
spot,
as the resident, okay.
and then, yeah, and then Bryce Clark would take the vacant.
Because the statute just requires that a majority have an interest in the downtown.
Right, exactly.
So
Yep,
really
so
only
he-
4 of them need to have an interest.
Yeah. Okay, does that tell you enough?
Yep.
As much as you need to know for
Yep,
the
then
term
I'll
endings?
coordinate their names onto the spreadsheet and we'll know their terms and we'll know when they expire.
Okay, perfect. We do a roll call
Is that
vote?
it?
That's it.
That's tiny.
Oh, I'm sorry, roll call vote. Cook,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Hellman,
Yes.
and Bordeaux.
Yes.
Great, motion carries. Thank you.
you.
Thanks. Okay, next up on the agenda is the request for the blue and gold flags for the November 30th anniversary. We have in our packet a photo of what that looks like, and it looks like someone approached you, Kelly, on this issue. So, do you want to speak to this at all? Okay.
So this person reached out in December of this past year and said that they had these flags that they were sending. They were originally from Oxford. They lived in New York now. And, you know, we said thank you. They sent them, but they were supposed to be here much sooner. They didn't get here till spring. Well, it's spring, you know, I kind of talked with Joe and just said, I don't think it's the time to start putting up things right now when all those things were coming down. So we said, you know, maybe the best option would be for the 1 year anniversary for a few days during that time to have the flags up and then come down again, because then we'll go into soup and sweet stroll and the parade and things of that nature. So, but we still wanted to, you know, tell this family thank you. I mean, they're very nice, that you can tell that they spent quite a bit of money on them. But I just thought that maybe that would be the perfect timing that week. But I really told Joe, I feel like it's up to you guys and your plans and whatever you think.
I delegated to Joe because I had this thought while I was at work and didn't have an opportunity to call. I asked him to call, if he would call
Jamie, the Resiliency Center.
the very nice lady Jamie at the Resiliency Center to see if she had any
And
recommendations.
Yep, and I touched on it briefly earlier. As you'd expect, same thing with the other ribbons and stuff. It's 50-50, and she kind of feels that it's about half the kids, half the community feels, yeah, they'd like to see that those remembrances and those things, and the other half says, "I'm just soon move on." And then she said, so that's what you're stuck with. And it really comes down to, she thought, what I described to her, what Kelly and I talked about, perhaps doing a 1 week, that week that might cover the 30th, and then taking it down, because at least then you've satisfied some of the need for those who want to see it. But then took them down shortly thereafter, the anniversary, as the festive holiday season takes off.
The soup and sweet is on the second, right?
It is.
So it's only 2 days later.
Yeah, so, you know, if they put them up a couple of days maybe before, so, yeah, because it's literally soup and sweet and the tree lighting, and then the parade is the next day.
So we're talking like right after Thanksgiving to 30th or the 1st,
Yeah.
and then.
I was just hoping to give both of those groups of people something and not, you know, hurt either one of them. I mean, the 30th is going to be here, you know, as hard as it is for everyone, but this would at least hopefully help both of those groups.
I mean, I think it's, because it's a formal, put on by the school, Remembrance Day, I would like to see them up. I've also been talking with Matt about a formal, like, let's take the stars down event in November as well, so I think it's a nice time, have it up. It is what it is, the day is going to be there, the school is acknowledging it, and then we'll take everything down in time. That's my personal preference.
Yeah, Allison.
The gift of the flags is incredibly touching, and clearly this family put, you know, their whole, like, they put their whole hearts into this and whatnot. Where I'm bumping on, these flags seem very rah-rah, like, pep rally to me.
Joe, you didn't bring one with you, did you? Do you want me to go over and get one?
It's right, no, I can get it. It's right on my
Okay.
desk.
I,
The 3 of my
I
5.
definitely, I hear you. When you see them, it just is the school colors. It doesn't look like that, and I don't know if the picture's doing it justice. Not that I'm
Yeah.
for or against, but I think that it,
How many are there? 6?
there's 12 of them.
Oh, 12.
Originally, their thought was on our light poles where we would put the American flags.
Can we give the flags when they're done after this year to the families impacted?
That would be great.
And then this is a one-time deal. We're having our official remembrance and,
I was thinking either the families or the school.
yeah.
I can see the sports teams may, that makes one. I would maybe,
They might be more meaningful to the families, but I don't know.
yeah, I'm not sure.
Well, there's enough for families plus school, right?
That's true.
Would it
Well,
make,
you got 11 if you go all
Yeah.
the families technically.
And then we have
12.
one for the school.
Yeah, that's true, that's true. Yeah.
would it make more sense if we did something
Including keeping it.
that was smaller? We put them where we would normally put the Christmas banners, but it was just
What took you?
just the O and the 4 hearts.
So those
just-
are more difficult to put up.
Are
I
they?
will tell
Okay.
you that these do slide in like the American flags would. So from a DPW perspective, it would be a little bit easier for them to get up and take down.
It's significant.
I know there's an aversion to the phrase Oxford strong to more people.
I like the 4 hearts.
Like, I know it's a comfort for some and others bump on it more.
Yeah.
So I'm
I
trying to
mean, you're
find
not-
that middle ground of,
I think that makes
You're not gonna get around that. It is the banner call, it's the rally call,
yeah.
it's the support call, and I think for a short time.
So what are you thinking, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving up until the 1st?
Well, I'm wondering, Joe,
After
do you think
Thanksgiving.
DPW would be able to just put them up for that day? Do you think they would be comfortable with doing that?
Which day?
Because maybe it's just, this is the one day, this is the Remembrance Day that those are up. And then they come down.
So that's a Wednesday, that's a Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
It's a Wednesday, November 3rd?
Yeah.
I think you want to put them up Tuesday night, only because DPW doesn't come to work until 7 o'clock in the morning. People are already on their way to work, but you put them up Tuesday night
Yeah. I think
and
that's
then take
fine.
them down.
Thursday morning.
And then we can schedule our volunteers to put up the Christmas stuff that day when the flags come down.
And then disperse of the flags how we see fit
I
after.
think to the families is a great idea.
Maybe just mail them.
Okay.
Note or something, tell them, yeah.
Do we need a
donate
motion
them,
for
yeah.
that?
Yeah, can I ask, Chief Schultz, do you have an opinion on this?
I'm gonna go with no. Just go with no, Pete.
I'll abstain.
Okay.
Chief Stowell, do you have an opinion?
Well, Chief,
I
you don't,
spoke to some of the victims' families, and it is kind of 50-50, but the ones that I've talked to, they see some of the things that are up, and when we were talking, well, when the talk was about replacing the dirty ribbons that were downtown, they were ready to move on, didn't want to be replaced. And as they were talking to me in my hallway, they saw enough Oxford Strong flags similar to that, and they said, yeah, we're ready to move on from that. So that was just one of them. So, I'm on the youth assistance board as well, and we're organizing a 5K for that day because they are going to close school that day. So I was thinking, well, maybe incorporating that, the flags were downtown, I could see that, depending on what route, we haven't decided a route yet, but we're talking about maybe starting at the school, walking and going Pine Trail and do a loop around and going back, something of that nature. So it's 50-50, I guess, so.
Yeah, they're gonna make a big statement. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
so the schools are
Those big
closed. Yeah, like,
Those are
a lot of
very-
people are gonna be I'm taking the day off work to spend with my kids
Yeah.
and serve the community. So we're gonna be downtown, like, it's in your face if you want it to be. I do not have an opinion because I don't feel like I should honestly have an opinion.
Yeah.
And I'm not like saying anything, I like people to have opinions, but it's a really hard decision to make because I know it affects everybody so differently, so.
It's a very tough decision because, yeah. I mean, I know my son's over the wording, but either way, those things are gonna come back for that day.
Mhm.
And I think the respect of the day and then coming down, so it's not overwhelming, it's not a month long.
Can we make a statement in advance or like let the schools know so that they could send out an email to say, this is what you can expect to see, there might be the 5K, like this is where it's going to go, there will be visual reminders. And so that the students have the option and the families have the option of whether to come in or to avoid.
That's good. The school's been great at doing that.
Yeah.
Constantly sending out anything that they think might affect anyone. So we were Oxford Strong before November 30th.
Right.
We were Oxford
Yeah.
Strong through the pandemic and everything else, and for a really long time. But still, I understand. So
I think the option is also there to, if we don't use them, to send to the families. And the option's there to not put them up and just write a letter to the families and send them to the families too.
Where are we putting them?
There's typically the same poles that they would, the Memorial Day flags, the 4th of July flags. Same spots on the street poles.
There's the specific poles, on the specific street lights.
There's 12 total.
12, yeah.
Reaper class.
Can we tone that down?
You can have one if
Or
you'd
what
like.
what would be the, cause like,
Is there an option to put it just one in the park maybe that day?
Yeah, you can put one on each.
Just, maybe just one?
You
You
can
know,
put one
have
in each
one off.
quadrant, you can put one in the park, you could, you have 12, but that's because someone gave you 12. You don't need to use all 12.
cause I feel like 12 is very
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
Lot.
pretty prominent.
flashy almost, and it's not,
That's not.
I don't think
Yeah,
that's
we don't-
anyone's intention to.
Sometimes a one is very symbolic.
Yeah, agreed.
And Chief, if you talk to the kids at the 5K and some of them wanna be flag bearers on it and if they feel that's something they wanna use, then Chief could use it for that.
Yeah.
If they don't, they don't have to.
I think the one in the park is tasteful.
Yeah, I like that.
What if we put
idea.
one in the park, do we wanna put one in front of this building?
In front of one.
Our building, on the flagpole?
Just gotta make sure that flag, the etiquette is. I'm not sure what size our flag is. You can't have, any other flag should be smaller. I'm not sure what size our flag is, our US
I
flag.
think the park is.
I think the park would,
Same one in the park, I would make sure that the sizing is right, but we'll make sure.
What size are those?
3 by 5.
Well, I think that's probably the absolute small. It would need to be the same size as the American flag, but the American flag would be bigger.
Right.
Because that 3 by 5 is awfully small for an American
Yep.
flag.
Chances are ours is at least 4 by 6.
4
up
by
there.
6, yeah. The boxes are in the basement. You just go read it.
We've had new ones since then, Mo.
You probably haven't. I've seen our flags.
We change them every 6 months.
Right next to the museum donation documents.
I mean, leading up to, you might get a request from the schools to do things, or from some other groups to do certain things that could maybe use one as well for their, we don't know what's gonna come up as it gets closer, so it may end up being used for another one.
Joe, do you need some sort of guidance from us, from other people who are gonna be approaching you in the last hour, in the?
I would say that it's a council decision. If it's not in time to go to council, then I wouldn't want to entertain it, because it's one of those.
You have one more meeting.
I don't wanna make
You have
any
another
little
meeting before
decisions.
this. You have one more meeting before this.
And our feeling is the DDA, we're just bringing everything to you guys.
Oh, 2, yeah, actually 2.
Sorry.
Yeah, too.
So yeah, with what you described in the park, we could definitely go with, and if something else comes up, some of them are dissuadable, easy, because some people say we should have 4 bronze statues at the corners. Well,
Yeah.
So
How about we wait till
Whether
November?
that coffee mug.
That's a good idea.
yeah, so we have our October meeting yet to come up with the.
Or even November, just
Yeah, or even
wait
November.
right
Yeah,
before,
too.
so we can, if more comes in, we can collectively decide and don't have to regret making any
We can
decisions.
check the other flag sizes and make,
Yep.
well, in between.
Okay.
Okay,
Well, that's why we wanted to get it to you now, so you guys can think about it.
that sounds good to everyone, we'll wait until it gets closer.
Yep.
Okay, do you need a motion on that, or are you good, just wait?
We're good.
All right, any other, comments or questions on 8B? All right, now we'll move to 8C. So this is a crosswalk, recommendation by Chief Solwald on Pontiac Street at OES, and I think, Ashley, you brought this up before too, because we see the kids as well, so, Chief, go ahead, please.
Yes, it was brought to my attention too by Principal Brown at Oxford Elementary School. This is something that we had talked about before, and then pandemics and school tragedies and things like that happen. There's a lot of kids that are, I dare say, walking through the church area there from Oxford Elementary School or to DA or back and forth. We find ourselves, I know I'm one that we get out of the car and actually do crosswalks for them, and do crossing guards for them to make sure they get across the street safe. And it's in that area, I draw up, it's not to scale, that map that I made for you guys, but the reason why I wanted the paint strips there is because that's where the kids cross. And there's really no other section that meets a sidewalk unless it's other residential driveways. And that's where the kids cross. And if we're not there or somebody's not there to guide them, they'll see that because that's where they cross. They'll see the paint and the signs will be there to warn people instead of tell kids they got to go down this way to cross. And I'm gonna go this way. So that's the best spot, and it's right in the island there between the entrance and exit to the Baptist church, across the street where it meets the sidewalk to where the parents do pick up and drop off, and then where the buses come in. So I thought that was the best spot for that. And then the signs that are going to warn drivers coming in from the south and from the north. And I talked to Don, and he said with the cost of the signs, the paint, and the labor, it would cost about $400 if we were to put that down. And I think it's just anything and everything that we can do to give the kids some extra safety to cross there if we can't be there.
Does this mean
I think
we're
it's a
losing the stop sign at Boyer?
No, not unless you guys want to lose it.
I think this is a horrible idea. I think this is absolutely a horrible idea. Look, kids, here's a place with no one to stop traffic. There's just a paint on the ground. Go. Everybody go. Just go. Is it horrible? I see kids flat all over the place.
They're already doing it. So I will say, they're already doing it, and there is a crosswalk on township property that's just down the road. But you have you either are going to walk all the way to the stop sign or you're going to walk all the way down to the library, and no kids doing that. And even when school's not in session, you have the kids going back and forth to the parks and the fields on both sides. They're already doing it. At least we can call some attention to the
I think this
drivers.
encourages kids to
They're
not
doing
use
it.
the stop sign.
They're doing it
And
anyway.
who raised
and
you?
parents.
You
You
cross
can
the
call
stop
Michelle
sign.
Pfeiffer anytime and talk to her.
The one on
No,
Glass.
Michelle Pfeiffer raised you?
Yes.
The one on Glass Street is super noticeable. The signs are very noticeable, and you know, there's been times when I've drove up to it and just been like, "Look," you know, like forget it's there, and it kind of freaks me out. It's very noticeable. So I do think. I'm
But you're
assuming
whipping
it'd
up
be the
Pontiac
same.
Street at 45 miles an hour, just south.
You're
Doing
speeding.
that.
That's why we have the stop sign.
In the township, is it at 45?
40.
40.
So you're going 45. Don't lie to me and tell me you're not.
I don't.
I do.
That's why we don't take Pontiac anymore, and we have the stop sign.
Absolutely.
Mo's my biggest fan, so I always pay attention.
Does it not have a lower speed limit during school hours?
Yeah, well, it's always 25 in there, whether it's the school zone or not, in our section.
But
so.
the township.
But there is a section when you go
Oh,
to
you're
the
talking
township.
about further
If
down.
you're headed north,
Yeah.
it's not that far.
No,
right
it's
at
like
the
right
church.
here.
No,
You're
yeah.
going 25.
So you're going
past that.
40.
Yeah.
So this is right at
You
the
should already be doing 25 if you're going south, but you are doing 40 before you come in. But as
Let's,
soon as you
uh,
enter the village limits, it turns to 25 right at the border.
Let's petition the township to change that to 25 and make Mo real happy.
I don't-
The whole thing.
I have not
I
been down
never wa-
Pontiac Street.
Yeah, then you
I'm
gotta get
waiting
into
your
the
house.
road commission and all that
I'm
other
just-
stuff. So yeah, no,
I-
I know. I agree.
I just-
Actually, I would love that. I like that idea.
I
mean,
actually
it is
like that
such a
idea,
short
but-
strip.
Yeah.
40.
Yeah,
that,
it should be honestly. Yeah,
I can't believe it is.
yeah.
And with the school there now, because that wasn't a school when the speed limit was 45. I mean, it was, but it wasn't being used as a school. It was just a
That was the
football
old
field.
high
It's been a
school one
school
time,
since it was
wasn't it?
built.
Yeah.
Well,
Exactly.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, so my day,
Yeah.
that was just the football field.
Kids get
There
hot
was
lunch
no-
there.
There was no
Yeah.
actual school going
right.
on there.
So
Sorry,
can
I'm not old
I?
enough to.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve the pedestrian crosswalk to be placed in the area of the church entrance as recommended by Chief Colwell.
Yep, support.
Okay, motion made by Ross, supported by Borjo.
Yeah.
Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote.
Ross?
Yes.
Talbot?
No.
Bordeaux?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Yes. Motion carries.
Thank you, council.
Thank you.
I never want you to come on Pontiac ever again.
Item D is proposed resolution 2022-10 MDOT annual permit authorization.
Just reaffirming our permittee users per usual.
Thank you. I'd move to adopt resolution 22-10, the performance resolution for municipalities as presented.
Support.
Motion moved by Cook, supported by Kemp. Any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, roll call vote please.
Talbot?
I don't know. Yes.
Bordeaux?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Yeah? Yes. Cook?
Yes, motion carries. Next is the Metamora landfill designated funds. Madam Clerk?
Well, we are currently wrapping up our pre-audit work, and we're still cleaning up some accounts that have been on the books for a long time. Metamora landfill, this is been closed since 1986. There's been no activity in any of our financial activity, nothing for over 20 years. It's not saying that if there was anything that came up in the future that we would, not have to or not be obligated if it came to that. I think the attorney can speak to that, but I think that our liabilities chances are slim. And so we're asking that these funds be undesignated.
So we looked at the Metamora landfill. The only activity going on right now is the regulated PFAS testing, like every landfill is going through with the program in Michigan right now. The landfill is not on any 201 designation for cleanup, nor is it been designated a Superfund site. The tangential liability is that with respect to landfills, if and when there is a problem where there's contamination that needs remediation, they do look back to potentially responsible parties, would be any entity that generated waste or materials to the landfill. That hasn't happened here, and it hasn't, this landfill's been closed administratively under the Eagle records for quite some time now. You have $29,000 in this account. If there was some cleanup remedy that was put in place, that $29,000 wouldn't go very far in terms of your liability. There's no reason to keep this designated funding right now, and it's a good account to clean up.
Thank you. I'd move to
I
undesignate.
think you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to,
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
sorry, I don't wanna get too sidetracked, but what was our original, okay, now I'm asking you to
What was
say
what was the reason we-
Why would we be obligated to do this in the first place?
We weren't. We did it. The community did it just as a precaution. I have other communities that have landfills, you know, that have money put aside for sampling and for ongoing mowing and for ongoing leachate control and rut control and slope control. But you're not, this landfill's not in your community. You're not in that loop. The only time you would be put into this landfill liability is if they went to a PRP designation to go back and try to retrace everybody who used the landfill to contribute money towards a cause.
I'd like to say that since I actually worked here in '86, I know you guys weren't born yet, but
I was born.
our trash hauler used to use Metamora landfill.
Yeah, and that's why,
Right.
that was the
It's
concern.
just a precautionary thing. It was a big deal in '86. It was big, but it was just precautionary.
So this is why I ended up messed up.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think from an audit purpose, cleaning up some of these miscellaneous accounts is a good idea.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, I'd move to undesignate the fund balance in the Metamora landfill fund in the amount of $21,433.94.
Oh, it's 21,000.
Thank you.
How did I get 29?
No.
Support.
Yes, for now.
Okay, motion made by Cook, supported by Bourgeot. Any discussion on the motion? Okay. And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nay? Motion carries. Thank you. Next up is 8F, Resolution 2022-11 for accepting a parcel of land for public space and parking.
So the map I shared with you guys shows the current blue boundary of the parcel lot behind the southeast quad over there. The yellow line represents the underlying old plat. Typically, you won't even see that till you get to a different layer in the pictometry and stuff. But that just shows how the old plat cuts through the magenta, which is the 40.5 South Washington parcel. So that's why there's a weird legal description. It's part of this and part of that. So the current owner of 40 South was getting ready to sell it, and this came to light that he never knew or wanted that back parcel. And in 2006, the township came to him and said, "Hey, there's this kind of weird spot. We want to give this to you." And he wasn't sure, and he signed the paperwork. He never really knew he owned it. He didn't want to own it. It was a separate parcel. There was a trust. One of the parties that sold it to his party and sold it to another party, somewhere along the line, this parcel got skipped in that process. So the owner of 40 South, which is where Valor Salon is now, he's getting ready to sell it, and he just wants to clean it up some, and said, would you guys, give you that back piece of property?
Is
And
it the whole red box?
yes,
Okay.
yep. So this would make it, for one, the biggest problem I have with the parcel is that it juts out into beyond. It's kind of hard to see with the tree there. It juts into beyond the curb into the public parking, and the neighboring, the tap is to the north there. Their property ends at the back of their wall. This would now make it similar that this one to the south, 40.5, would also, their property would end at the back of their wall. So it'd offer more public use, public space. It's part of the social district. So for $1, I think it was a good investment for us to take it and clean it up.
For snow plowing purposes, do the business owners shovel their back sidewalks, and then we would just have DPW come in and do this small portion?
We would only do the part, in the parking lot. We don't do,
You don't shovel the sidewalk there,
No.
even though if we own it though.
even along like on 24, they're supposed to shove it out into the parking bays and stuff. Even though they may not own it, they still maintain the snow in front of their buildings.
Okay, so you don't foresee any issues with like this part being snow, and I'm
Yeah,
people
well,
arguing
it's always
about
an
who's
issue.
supposed to clear
I wouldn't
it.
say we won't see any issues.
And it's not
That's
So-
fine. It's not worth not taking the property. I was just curious.
Right. Yeah.
So.
So when Joe contacted me on this, I thought it best to memorialize this with a resolution so that future generations who go into the basement will know about it.
Any questions from council? I'd move we adopt resolution 2211 for the Village of Oxford to accept a small portion of private land to use as public space and parking as presented.
Great.
Support.
Motion made by Cook, supported by Helmut. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Kemp?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Helmut?
Yes.
Peugeot?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries. Last item under new business is the Chamber Christmas Parade special event application.
And this is something that came to us this week. And although there is time to maybe put it on for next week, they would like to know that they want to begin promoting it, at least knowing that they can, without waiting, sorry, not next week, next month. So last year, this had all been approved by the police and the fire and the DPW and the council. And then, of course, everything changed, November 30th. So virtually the same application and process and route and everything this year. We haven't shared it with chief yet this year, but don't see any changes. So that's all contingent upon their approval, of course. Any approval, so it's kind of a redo. So they were just hoping to get approval, even if it's contingent upon follow-up with the police chief and the fire chief and DPW.
Okay.
And their insurance is still pending.
So you'd
Oh,
want,
they didn't get it?
It's here.
Okay.
you'd want this
Insurance here.
dependent on department head reviews.
Okay. I move to approve the special application for the Chamber Christmas Parade contingent on review by the appropriate department heads, including police and fire, or DPW.
Great.
Support.
Okay, motion made by Cook, supported by Helmuth. Any discussion, questions, comments from council? No? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nay? Motion carries. Okay, number 9, there's no items removed from consent agenda. 10, second opportunity. Anyone would like to speak under public comment? Chief Schultz.
Evening, council. I understand at the previous meetings that you decided to not take any action on the apartment inspections. So let me relate to you an incident that we had happen to us here about a week or so ago, that we got a call for a structure fire in an apartment building. And when we arrived on scene, obviously, yes, you could smell smoke. The resident in one of the other apartments had smelled the smoke in her apartment, and then so she came out in the hallway where it was like really bad, came out and called us. And got there, I went into the front door, and yes, you could obviously smell smoke like pretty heavily inside the building. And then we made entry into the apartment where it was coming from, and at that point, the items that were left on the stove that were cooking had burst into flames and was starting to lick up the front of the cabinets going up the front. No working smoke detectors in the apartment, no working smoke detectors in the hallway of the apartment, nothing. The occupant was there, but the occupant had a situation going on at the time and was not able to smell the smoke or do anything like that. So within probably another 15 minutes, we potentially could have been a fatal situation or whatever. So that was why our beliefs over the time, that's what we were looking out for, so.
Thank you.
Yep.
In our registration ordinance, do we have something that requires
Smoke.
smoke detectors?
Well,
Or how's that going?
it's not a requirement. They sign in at the bottom of the form that I attest that there are smoke detectors
We
and
put-
carbon monoxide detectors.
Just not an inspection part of it.
Right.
We put that on at the last
But-
moment there.
In this instance, that form came in probably within a week or two of that building with the signature stating that they were there.
But there's no eyeballs
Right.
in that registration process.
So the landlord of the multi-unit home, it's, you know, not the large complex, signed stating, yes, there are smoke detectors. And when we get it in, we don't know. Pete brought this to my attention only last week. I'm like, well, we pulled up the form that we'd been sending him these forms as I sent a whole bunch of them last week to him. And so that points out a serious problem, I guess, in the signing it and saying, yep, they're there.
Right.
Just out of curiosity, Pete, did the property owner receive a ticket? For any reason? Did?
Because was there a violation then? Because it's a rental, you know, I don't know if there's a fire code violation there.
No.
And to speak to that, Pete brought me some notes and some changes and amendments to our fire ordinance that we need to, and we'll work with Bob, and I shared with Bob.
I just told him we were done with that, so we'll have that on the next agenda. What we're doing is just trying to bring our community into consistency with township and fire chief and make sure we're all adopting the same codes.
Yeah, because there's OES or something like that. OESA is still noted in our fire ordinance, which doesn't exist anymore, so a lot of stuff is just being updated. Pete brought a whole lot of stuff, went through it for us and
Really
brought it
good
to us.
stuff, really good stuff.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. I think that it's probably not a problem unique to rentals, though. It's probably across the board. So definitely interested in any way we can partner to try to get smoke detectors in everyone's homes in the village. So maybe we can talk about that offline.
We have them available.
I absolutely disagree with you, Kelsey.
Why?
I think renters are totally different than single-family residential homes. And I was not at the meeting when you guys decided not to do the rental inspection. And I would like to go back and discuss that, because I think you guys were completely wrong.
Okay. Any other public comment? Okay, we'll move on to committee reports. Borjo, Noda?
No, I don't have anything this week.
Okay. Mo, Planning Commission and Cable Commission?
Planning Commission hasn't met in, I think, 7 years. It's been a while. it's just, there's never anything for the agenda. So I have nothing there. And the Cable Commission hasn't met till the week before the last Planning Commission meeting. So I'm good.
All right, it's easy.
We had one in September.
Ashley Ross, DDA?
I was not in attendance this month, so I don't know if Kelly has any further updates for the DDA.
It went well. It was a quick
When was the
meeting.
last time you went to your committee?
It's not a meeting.
Yeah, I missed
Gas
one.
is great.
Good.
Come to Scarecrow Fest October 2nd.
Yep, Scarecrow Fest. Scarecrow Fest looks awesome, October 2nd. Perfect. Thank you. Pollyant Trail?
Pollyant Trail, I think I need to have further discussion with Joe based on the conversation we had today. Our meeting was at 3 today, so I haven't really had a chance to talk with Joe and recap what Leanne Noss had brought before us. It is the trail gave its blessing, but doesn't want to be involved. And it is going to be quite a costly project.
So
At
for
least
those who
like
don't know
20,000.
exactly
Yeah,
anything
I'm
that
sorry.
you talked
Yes,
about,
I'm sorry.
let's back up. So I've had a couple requests over the last
That
year.
was very cryptic.
That was extremely cryptic.
I missed something.
I sat here like 2 hours ago. I'm sorry, I forgot.
Felt like I was at home.
I'm having sleep. Sorry, guys.
All is
How was
good.
how was your day?
All is good.
Very
All is
cryptic.
fine. It's a good thing. Let's just
Yes.
start there. I've had a couple requests over the last year or two about trying to put some crossings at Lakeville near Oxford Lakes entrance on Lakeville, getting over to the Pollyant Trail. So you
Right.
cross Lakeville Road. And earlier this summer, I reached out to Roe. Hey, what do you think? What would you think? Reached out to Jack Curtis. We talked to the Township Sharp Engineering. Did some preliminary reviews where they think crossing might work, because you have the Willow Lake sub in the north, you have Oxford Lakes here, you have the hill going towards town. It's township property to the north, you have road commission property, so there's a lot of players involved. But I did share the information with Miss, is it Knopf, I think, yes, I met her today at the consumer thing. So she was very happy with what we had already presented and shared, and I said, really, we need to get permission from, or support at least from Pollyant Trail before any of us spin any wheels trying to go forward with any type of a crossing there. The crossing would more than likely require signage and perhaps the flashers, because that's a higher speed county road. Village doesn't maintain that portion, or anyways.
It
Yeah,
seems like one half
we
of
do.
one lane is ours
So-
and the other lane is the road commission.
So I mentioned to Curtis Wright when he was here at the elections in August, hey, this is kind of brewing, what do you want, can we get it to you guys, at least see what you guys think? And so I sent it to them last week, they had it on their agenda today, just to be sure that they were, understand what the request was. Do they support the idea, and would they offer support? Because a lot of times when you go to get a grant or something like that, they want to see buy-in and support from the other stakeholders and stuff. So that was really what it was today. Took the Pollyant Trail, to see if they supported it and would support it going forward. Not that they would have the money or the backing to do the design and the installs and perhaps the flashers if needed.
Part of the problem would be that the grade there is extremely high, and it needs to be 2% to be ADA compliant, which it would require to be ADA compliant. The woman from Oakland County, Kristen, she was so helpful. She talked to me after, but she said it would be quite, it's a complicated project, and I suppose the road commission had already declined and denied permission to put a crosswalk further up by the middle school because of the sighting speed as a concern. And that we would need approval from the road commission to put the crosswalk there. And everyone involved would be the township, road commission, MDOT because of the timing of the lights. Us, it would be a.
For the race in 24.
Yeah.
She said she thought it was perhaps because of the timing.
So, but
of
there's
the
a whole
road,
nother, yeah.
there'd be a lot of moving pieces.
That's puzzling, because we have another stoplight there at Glasgow. Dictates
quite a ways from
the
24.
timing
Maybe
to
I'm,
24.
no, maybe I'm
So, yeah, but still,
maybe
there's a
we just kept
lot.
throwing alphabet soup at it.
Yes, the north side of the north side of the road with the Koenig property, for some reason they own like to the middle of the
Oh, and
road.
Koenig would also have to sign off on it.
And then you have the DNR who owns part of the trail, so it's a multi-party, multi-stakeholder project. So at least today it was just the first step to see if the Pollyant Trail would even be willing to entertain it for those parties who wish to go further. And it sounded like they supported the idea in theory.
Oh, they liked the theory. You know?
So.
But not the involvement.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay. Manager, staff, and attorney reports. Joe?
Not much. The only thing I want to mention though is, 59 North Saginaw. You guys have seen it. Perhaps it's a little bit of a buzz of a town. One of the ladies, I think Miss Prather, is that your neighbor? She reached out to me and asked, to Kelsey, and Kelsey forwarded it to me. So if you've been by 59 North, Mr. Dale Willicke owns the property. It's a rental property. Everyone else through the corridor, for M24 corridor, worked with MDOT real estate folks to grant either sale or whatever they did for the expanded right-of-way. Remember, we sold a bit of a right-of-way at the north entrance out of our parking lot. They tried and attempted many times with Mr. Willicke, never came to some kind of agreement. Yet they designed it and built it as if they had. So they had encroached into his private property without getting permission to expand their right-of-way as the lanes are tapering back into 4 lanes to get underneath the bridge.
MDOT did?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It was MDOT's faux pas from start to finish. Mr. Willicke said, okay, that's great, move your stuff. I'm not gonna work with you, I'm not giving you permission. So they thought maybe they could work it out with them, I guess. It was between their real estate folks and them, and we met with them a few times and explained some of the background and what their challenges would be. When they did the project and left the project and they bid the project, I assumed that they worked it out. That's between them and the property owner, and it never had been, and so he forced their hand and told them to remove it. I, and Mo reminded me, check the ordinance, I think we require a sidewalk, and I did, and I informed MDOT of that. They're gonna have to move back out along the curb where the existing little bit of right of way does still exist, and have a jog in the sidewalk there. And I've told them via email and writing that I don't want it to go all winter without a sidewalk.
It's so uncooperative.
That's the story behind it. It's a purely an MDOT situation. They obviously control the road, the right of way. They're the ones who built and designed and built something without proper permission. And the consequences are what you see out there.
100 other scenarios would have turned out different.
Yes. So,
Thanks for that.
Just saying.
yep. So,
Dangerous right now. I mean, it's about to get cold weather, and
Right.
people that frequent it are going to be running or walking on bricks.
now, if I recall, I don't know if I saw it, I think it was maybe in writing or something from MDOT that said, Mr. Willicke's fine with people wanting to still walk across his front yard, but he is not letting MDOT keep their sidewalk in his front yard.
But that puts a liability on him.
I didn't see, I never heard that from him. That was what I was told from MDOT. He's like, I don't care if people walk across my grass, that's fine, but move your sidewalk out of my grass.
So ridiculous.
I just want to say he has definite reasons for doing what he's doing. So don't just judge based on the circumstances. There's a lot of background.
MDOT should have worked it out. And, you know, when they went and let the project with that design, I think all of us assumed they had. That's their baby.
Could have condemned it.
I think so.
So, but it never had been. Obviously, it came to light, and his rights were to have them remove it, and that's what he exercised.
Anything else?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we've been going through audit prep for, well, actually, right after the last audit, start prepping for the next one, but, you know, pretty much very intensely since July. So the audit begins on Monday. We hope it's gonna be a quick, you know, couple of days, and then should be able to get those financial statements in by the December meeting that way, so. Unico did provide a legal analysis of our charter. I've given that to Bob and started looking at it myself. It's gonna be pretty involved. I don't expect to, there's a process that we're gonna have to go through, and I've sort of outlined that, and I'll probably bring that forward in the next little bit, but I gotta get through the audit first, and then I'll turn my attention on that.
I think your note to me was, read it, but don't talk to me about it. If I recall the email.
That's all I have.
I just had one issue to raise. Very recently, we had a very beginning meeting on a North Oakland County Waste Authority issue. You know, I represent the South Oakland County Waste Authority, which is 13 communities. There's a movement to form a North Oakland County Resource Authority. I'm not sure why you weren't invited to that. Everyone around you was on the Zoom meeting. You didn't hear anything about it. Orion was on, Auburn Hills was on, Pontiac was on, Waterford was on, everybody
Is
was.
Oxford Township?
Pardon me?
Oxford Township?
Yeah.
Okay.
So everybody, there's no obligations being imposed right now. Nobody's forming anything right now. There's just discussions. So I'd like your permission just to tell them to include you in for future notices. It's not a bad program. I just finished doing the Mid-Michigan Waste Authority, which was 36 communities, which required a psychology degree. But they put together a pretty good program, got pretty good rates, formed one centralized notice system so that all the DPWs of those 36 communities were sort of out of the waste business, consolidated into one group, and we got nice contracts in place and good rates and good services and lots of good technology. So there is an economy of a scale with being part of a group on that kind of a service. So I'll make sure your name is included on future invitations.
Is that why you FOIA'd me for?
No, that's the FOIA thing is I am working for the governor of the state of Michigan on potentially redefining how we account for the management of trash, yard waste, and recyclables throughout the state. We currently go with solid waste management plans county by county. And you know, within each county, communities do all kinds of things. They have their own ordinances, they have their own programs, they have their own contracts. Some of them do special assessment districts, some tax the people, some do a millage. So the governor down through part of Eagle wants to take a look at the state as a whole and see if there's anything we could do to consolidate the approach to how we manage our trash, recyclables, and yard waste as a state, as opposed to a bunch of little pockets. So I'm in charge of consolidating and analyzing the information on how every community in the state is going about that. So I had to do a FOIA. I had to do the FOIA to say that I did it, even though I knew the answer.
He wanted to be on my list, I just.
Did you make him pay for it?
I thought she was gonna deny me and force me to
Of all the
appeal.
FOIA stuff
Yeah.
we covered through.
Yeah. Anyways, that's how that originated, so that was,
Okay,
so we'll keep you posted on that. It might be, it might be something in the future
okay,
that you're interested in.
sounds good. All right, Chief Sowald or Schultz, any comments? No? Executive Director Brown, that's good.
Thanks for that alert, Chief.
All right, council comments. Let's start at the end and move over. So, Portia?
Nothing. I could sing again.
Come on, let's be unanimous
Let's do
here.
it.
Okay, well, no, I'm gonna make your life difficult. Sorry, Bob, I'm not trying to. But when we did have that conversation about rentals, Mo wasn't here, we did discuss, we wanted it to come back to us with an outline of the process that a renter would have to go to, what their options would be if there was an issue. So I would like to see that, and then we talked about doing some sort of postcard that we could send out to renters with resources and information. So I would like to
Yep.
have that be on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, that was gonna be my comment too. I think that, beyond like the inspection, there's other things we can do to accomplish the same objective. So public education regarding fire safety, we have rental addresses, a lot of them will get the others. We could even
More
do a
coming in.
mailer out to everybody, but we can target market residents. We're in rentals with, hey, check to see if you have smoke detectors. If you don't, here's who you can contact, just to make public awareness of that.
My sense, I've worked on this ordinance 19 times. My sense of where you're at is that I think you all see the same target and the result you're looking for. What we have to do is find out what works for all of you on how to get there. It doesn't seem like a full-blown inspection ordinance is in your appetite, but it doesn't seem like you don't want to do anything. So we have to figure it out.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I had, thank you. I'll move to adjourn at 9:03.
Support.
Thank you.
All those in favor, say aye.
Yeah, Joe, I was surprised that you guys didn't get the notice of that.
Today.